Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Kamakshi's history. In Kanchipuram, the grace and compassion of Mother have taken tangible form as Ambal, sporting sugarcane bow, Ikshu Chappam, and flower arrows, Pushpa Banam. There is one more Devata bearing these as weapons. Manmadan or Kaman, the god of love, Cupid, also has the same weapons. So these two items are common between Kaman and Kamakshi. Manmadan has sugarcane bow. The string for that bow is made of a number of beetles holding each other's legs with their hands, and the two beetles at either end holding on to the bow with their hands or legs. With this bow of sugarcane, string of beetles, and 5 flower arrows, this Manmata's reign over all life forms is unchallenged. All the sweet edibles in life are made of sugar, candy, jaggery, and that sweetness is Kaman's weapon. How can it be avoided? Flowers are famous for fragrance, softness, and beauty of form. They are his arrows. The twang of the bow comes from the very pleasant sound made by the beetles. Thus, Kaman feeds on all the 5 senses and the minds of all with euphoria, elation, and well being. No one wants to say no to his invitations, but only want more and more of the same. He is so empowered by Ambal's wish to continue her Leela of procreation. So instead of Irumbu wheel, he has Karumbu wheel. Irumbu in Tamil means iron and Karumbu means sugarcane. But Ambal does not want everyone to become enslaved by sensual pleasures all of the time either. Even those who are involved in the worldly life may not be so involved in their pursuits of making money and enjoying sensual pleasures that dharma or morality gets ignored. To be involved in their worldly pursuits with discipline is only the first stage. This should progress to the ultimate stage when senses and mind come to an absolute standstill. Then the individual steps of the cycle of birth, death, as though stepping off a train. At that stage, Manmata or Kaman has no role to play. The director of this Leela or drama, Ambal, has meant dharma, discipline, and morality as a check on artha, acquisition of material and wealth, and kama, gratification of desires, to enable all the life forms to attain moksha eventually. There was an occasion when she had to take away the sugarcane bow and flower arrows for herself from Manmada, who was meant for the kama of all. That also she did out of extreme love and compassion only. She wanted that Parabrahma Swarupam should shower its anugraha on all lives and endow them with dharma and jnana. With that aim in view, she had to take the sugarcane bow and flower arrows and become Kamakshi. That was when Parmeshwara sat down as Dakshinamurti, as Jnanamaya Swarupa. He sat stilling all activities, including that of the mind. He is in the form of Advaita, of all in one. Then what happens to all the Jiva rasis, meaning living beings? Who will care for them? The still awareness being should flow as the ocean of compassion and bless all life forms, she decided out of her grace. She was quite capable of doing so herself, but people had to be demonstrated as to how a gem of a woman should behave. She is not different from him. She is the same Shiva. Ultimate jnana should also be all absorbing kindness and love. The time was appropriate for her to pick up the sugarcane bow and flower arrows and become Kameshwari. That was the time when Tarakasura and Surapadma were creating total anarchy in all the worlds. They had done much tapasya and obtained such boons of unlimited power that they were assured that only Parmeshwara's own son only could sort them out. That Parmeshwara was merged in Atma Anubhuti as Dakshinamurti. How to get him involved in procreative activity? The Devas, hounded by the Asuras, could only think of one opportunity. At that time, Himavan's daughter Parvati was serving as a maid looking after Dakshinamurti's physical well being as he was seated in dhyana. If Manmathan, responsible for Kama, could divert the attention of Parmeshwara towards Parvati, then the birth of a son of Shiva, Parvati, could be ensured. So they sent Manmatha to show his prowess on Parameshwara. The power to bring the whole world under his control had been given to Manmatha by the same power of Parameshwara. His aim could have been achieved had he approached Parameshwara with humbleness. But Manmatha was bloated by pride and complacency. He thought that he could make Parameshwara enamored of Parvati by his antics. He directed the flower arrows on Parameshwara. Parameshwara felt some movement. He slightly opened the third eye. Manmatha was burnt and reduced to ashes in a fraction of a second. He had the pride that he was too beautiful and too good to resist. Bodily beauty cannot stand before the fire of knowledge. From being Sarva Anga Sundaran, that is all body beautiful, he became Ananga, that is a nobody or a nobody. Manmatha's wife Rati cried. Parvati gave her anugraha that Ananga will continue to function as a devata with duties as usual and be visible to Rati's eyes only. She told Manmatha, I am the one who had given you the sugarcane bow and flower arrows. I am giving them back to you. Your job it is to involve all the life forms in the act of procreation. Otherwise, all of them would have remained celibate. Only when they take life again and again, they could progressively get across the ocean of repeated birth and death. Otherwise, there would have been a stagnation and chaos. So you had been given certain powers. You have endeavored to show your craft on your employer himself in vain. He, Parmeshwara, can be responsive only to love. I will give you a demonstration of how this can be done. So saying, she took up the sugarcane bow and flower arrows herself and went and stood in front of Kameshwara. She looked at him with love overflowing that she got the name of Kama plus Akshi, loving eyes. Kamakshi. There are certain other interpretations too. Let it be. I have given you the direct meaning. This name, Kamakanni, has been there in Tamil from time immemorial. A Sangha period lady poet was known as Kamakanniyar Napallayar. Such a name could not have been there in such olden times unless Kamakshi was a well known deity. Anyhow, let us go back to the story. Earlier, Manmathan had gone to Parmeshwara with the intention of making him the target of his arrows and got burnt to ashes. Ambal, on the other hand, offered the sugarcane bow and flower arrows in Parmeshwara's feet and prostrated in supplication. Parmeshwara became her Kameshwara. This is the power of love and humility. He was overcome with love for her by one look of her eyes. The bow and arrows were indicative of her hold over the entire universe of all life forms. When she offered them in all humbleness and supplication, how can there be any antipathy in Parmeshwara? Then followed Parvati Kalyanam and Kumara Sambhavam, Murga's birth, destruction of Taraka and Surapadma eventually. Anybody, when defeated, feels ashamed. There is one occasion when this does not happen. When you lose to your own son, you will feel proud instead of shame. There is a Sanskrit proverb on this, Putrat Ichet Parajayam, meaning we wish to be defeated by our son. True to the proverb, Parmeshwara was thrilled by the fact that the Asuras who could not be vanquished by him could be annihilated by his son. He who was Dakshinamurti, as primordial Jnanamurti, took Upadesha on Pranava Mantra from his son, thereby proclaiming Subramania's Mahima to the entire universe. The reason for the son to be brilliantly superior to him in jnana and might is the Ambal's contribution undoubtedly. After Kama's demise, her becoming Kameshwari and making him love her is the reason for the son being more than an addition of the two inputs. In evidence of the story from the Purana in Kanchipuram, in between Ekambaranathar's temple and Kamakshi Amman Alayam, there is Kumara Kotam. In the Somaskanda statues taken around the temple premises and or the town on ceremonial occasions, as there is Murugan sitting in the lap of the mother, exactly similarly between Kamakshi's and Parmeshwara's temples is the Sanctum Sanctorum of Subramanya in Kanchipuram. Why did Kamakshi change the Paramagyana Dakshinamurti into Kalyana Sundara? Not only for the destruction of Tarkasura and Surapadma, but to enable the Jivarashis or life forms to get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. They have to take birth as human beings and mature into Jnana. Dakshinamurti, steeped in Atma Dhyana, couldn't care less for the Jivarashis, as after all, they are only part of the non existent Maya. This ocean of Jnana had to become an ocean of compassion. For that purpose, she became Kameshwari and made him Kameshwara. She is herself capable of doing so. Though I am saying that she made him do so, his is to be and hers is to do. Still, she made it seem so as her Leela or play. She is the role model for all women to do and give the credit to the man. Mukar sings, Amma, how surprising that you who could make a Karuna Murti out of Dakshina Murti by making him fall in love with you, lift the jivas from the mire of moha to moksha. As an aside, probably that is why we say fall in love and not lift in love. We fall in love because we think that we are supposed to do so and she lifts us from moha. As she created Kama in Parmeshwara, she curtails the Kama aberrations in us. Manmata uses sugarcane bow and flower arrows to make us go astray in running after sensual pleasures. She holds the same weapons in her hands to enable us to bring in discipline in self gratification. She holds the Karamba will, indicative of the mind, under control. The 5 arrows are indicative of the beauty of sound, touch, shape, taste, and smell. As we enjoy them, we have to be aware that all the sensual pleasures of life are her beauty and grace only. She is the Kamakshi of sweetness, softness, and fragrance. If the same glance of her eyes, by which she could make him enamored of her, falls on us, all our crass desires will be erased. Whatever we see then will be her beauty. Everything will become one. Advaitam, nothing higher or lower. Forest and home, enemy and friend, young and old, good and bad, gold and sand, all will become one. All her grace accrues to those who have had the slightest sliver of the glance of her eyes, says Mukar. At the time of Parvati's marriage, all the worlds were happy. At that time, so that the nobody Ananga and his wife Rati may not be having a complaint, he has given back his body. The celibate Parmeshwara married Parvati and got a son too. Manmata felt happy that it was somehow his victory too. He wanted that the world should also know that the credit goes to him. After all, it was his department's job to get people married. He realized that All that he had to do to get his desire fulfilled is to pray to Mother. He came to know of the Parabrahma Shakti, Ambal's presence in Kanchipuram as Kamakshi. If you think of the whole world as a woman, Kanchipuram is like the Odyanam, a belt-like golden ornament worn on the hip over the dress. Kanchi in Sanskrit means Odyanam. In that area of the navel, Kamakshi's sanctorum is located. It is known as Bilakasham. Bil means a cave or niche and Akasham means space. As the baby in the womb gets nourishment through the umbilical cord, all living things in the entire universe get this sustenance by Ambal's Anugraha from this Bilakasha. Akasham or space itself is representative of Atma as everything is contained in it. The space that is spread everywhere in all directions is called Mahakasham. When it is inside an individual, the Maha becomes small Akasham or Daharakasham, literally meaning the space of the heart, that is Chidambaram, which is formed by Chit plus Ambaram. When we get to know ourselves, that knowledge of the real self, the source of our breath, and being the root of our existence, enables us to experience and enjoy the Dahara Akasha. If the whole world is considered as the body of a person, the Virat Purusha, his heart is at Chidambaram. If you go to the Nataraja temple in the city of Chidambaram in Tamil Nadu, they show you the Chidambara Rahasyam, the secret of Chidambaram. You do not see anything but space undefined. It is the same truth in Kanjipuram as Bilakasham. In Chidambaram, it is only in the Chit Sabhai, but in Kanchipuram, it is spread in the entire city, says the Purana. Bilakasha Rupini, Kamakshi, is enthroned there holding the sugarcane bow and flower arrows of Kaman. It is this royal highness to whom Kaman came to and sat in tapasya. Amma, pleased with his perseverance, gave him a darshan. He prayed to her, Amma, Parmeshwara, after reducing me to ashes, took you as his consort. You detailed me as responsible for love, desire, and passion in the entire universe. So the credit for Parmeshwara falling in love with you should also accrue to me. But the world knows only about my being burnt off. As the mother of all, you only have to make the world realize that I am responsible for your marriage with Parmeshwara and birth of Subramanya. Amma took pity on this child. Immediately she withdrew her power from all the Ambal Sannidhis and Sri Chakra Yantras, from all the temples wherever her statues and yantras were installed. Like the light of the eyes is missing in a dead body, the fact was evident by the absence of divinity. Evidently, Shiva without Shakti is Sava or a dead body. So to say, Brahma came forward in support of Shiva, who was playing his part to the letter. Brahma said, Amma Paradevata, please become omniscient once again. Amma said, I had withdrawn my power only on behalf of Manmata. Now that the power of Manmata has become known to all, I will re-establish the status quo ante. This story is well described in Kamakshi Vilasam. There is also proof of this incident in engravements on stone in many temples. In many of Shiva temples, the Ambal Sannidhi is known as Kamakotam. Chola kings have engraved on stones whenever they have repaired or refurbished the temples in places such as Avinashi, Vijayamangalam, Tiruvartriyur, Tirukattupalli, Vallam, Tiruparanam, Koiladi, and so on. In them all, Ambal's temple has been referred as Kamakotam, Udayanachiyar, or words to that effect. In Chidambaram, other than Tamil inscriptions, there is a Sanskrit inscription too in which Shiva Kama Sundari, Ambal's name in Chidambaram, has been referred as Kamakoshta Sthitaya. Puranam says that from all Amman temples all over the world, the life force of Parashakti had been withdrawn to Kanchipuram, and then after a period her Sannidhyam or divinity was redirected to those places. Since then, the practice of calling Mother's sanctum sanctorum as Kamakotam must have evolved. Though her name in that sthala or station may be different, like Kanchi Kamakshi, Kashi Vishalakshi, Madura Meenakshi, or Kamalamba or Karpagamba, and so on. Thirugyana Sambandar has sung a Tevaram in which he says, Kachippodi Kama Kotiyudan Kudi. He not only calls the Amman in Alangudi as Kama Kodi, so that it may not be mistaken as a normal name of Alangudi Amman. He adds the place name as a prefix Kachip Podi, referring to Kanchipuram. Similarly, Appar Swamigal in Tiruvadigal, Tiruthandaganam says Kodam Pavala Chenikani Vai Kamakoti. This is clear proof of this fact that it is the divinity of Kamakshi which reinvigorated Amman's Sannidhi in other stations too. It is the Kamakoti Vasini or Kamakshi referred to as Kamakoti. Kamakoti is different from Kamakoti or Kamakotam. Kamakshi's place is Kanchipuram is Kamakotam. Kamakoti, on the other hand, is the place of Jnana from which Kama is crores of miles away. Kamakshi herself is Kamakodi too. As a form or murti, she is Kamakshi. As a Peetham or institution, it is Kamakoti. In the environs of Kamakshi's temples, the Kamakoti Peetham is located. In Bhagavatam, while talking about Parashurama's Tirtha Yatra, there is a mention that he came to Kamakoti Purim, Kanchim, though there are many Shiva Vishnu temples in Kanchipuram from olden times. It has been specially referred to as Ambal's Kamakoti Puri. Having returned the Ambal Sannidhyam or divinity back to all temples everywhere, she wanted a permanent memorial to Manmada's victory. Two things were done accordingly. Till date, in Kanchipuram, though there are many Shiva temples, except for Kamakotam, there is no other sanctum sanctorum of Ambal in any of those temples. Secondly, as an indication of Manmada's victory over Shiva, Kanchipuram was given a new name as Shivajit Kshetram. She wanted that people should wonder about why there are no Amman Sannidhis other than Kamakotam in Kanchipuram, and as to why the place is known as Shivajit Kshetram. This Purana will be told to them, and they will thereby know that it is Ambal's Anugraha to Kama. Such is her power of Anugraha. Sundaramurthy Swamigal, while singing in Onakantan Thali in Kanjipuram, says, Varirungal Val Nedungan Malai Magal, Madhu Vimmukondrai Tarirum Tadamarbu Ningada Tayalal, Ulagu Uya Vaita, Karirum Podil Kachimudur Kamakotam, Undaga Neerpoi, Uridum Pichai Kolvadenne, Onagandan Taliyulire. He means to say, only when there is no Amman Sannidhi in your temple, possibly you have to go with a begging bowl and live on alms. When there is Kamakshi of Kamakotam, who feeds the entire world nearby, why should you go to all this trouble of going around with a begging bowl? Kamakshi is not only the mother who feeds the milk of Jnana, but is also Annapurni. Tamil literature talks of how by her just look she can and does meet all your demands, requirements and needs. If we sit and meditate on the Shivakama Sundari, all our desires, needs, necessities, requirements, unavoidables, anger, greed, madness, jealousies, small and big will vanish, and we will know ourselves to be completely contented in all respects. Kamakshi's eyes. In our body parts, the eye is very important. As we address someone whom we love endearingly, my darling, we do not say my nose or my ears. Is it not so? When we think of the Parabrahman in the form of a mother, her eyes automatically gets a special mention. That is why among mothers' names, Kamakshi, eyes full of love, Meenakshi, whose eyes are shaped and flitting like a fish, and Visalakshi, wide-eyed, are famous. Akshi talks of the characteristics of the eye. Kamakshi holds in her hands sugarcane bow and flower arrows, as we say. Adi Shankara says in a shlokam, starting with the words Bruvo Bhugne Kinchit in Saundarya Lahari, that her eyes are of the shape of the bows and that her glances are as powerfully piercing as arrows. What are you saying? Her eyes are like horizontally held bows. She seems to be scolding. It is not so that only when one is worried or annoyed that the eyes are strained like that. The mother of the world is worried because of her concern for the welfare of her children. Her naturally beautiful eyebrows are having the shape of a bow with two curves with a slight constriction in the center. In the center of the eyebrows, at the point where the nose commences, is a gap without hair. Actually, it is a Samudrika Lakshanam or qualitative brows or qualitative requirement for beauty to have a clean hairless gap between the eyebrows. But when comparing her eyes to a bow, this gap would be an aberration. But Acharya gives the reason for its being so. That cap is the fist of the person holding the bow, he says. Who is that person? He is Manmatha. In his bow, the string is made of a number of beetles. Here, below the eyebrows, there are two eyes which are for ever flitting here and there out of their concern that none of her children may remain without being blessed. Here also the archer is Manmatha. It is his power that Dakshinamurti awoke from his Jnana Nishtha and looked at Ambal with love. His love for the mother should mean love for the life forms of all jivas. It is as though the Asaivu Illada Brahmam asaindu koduttadu, blessing the whole world. Mother's worries were over. Manmatha's fist holding the bow is the space between mother's eyebrows, and his wrist and hand is the lower portion of the nose. Thus describes the Acharya in Saundarya Lahari. When directed at Parmeshwara, a glance of those eyes of Kamakshi are showering the flower arrows of desire and love. When looking at the devotees, the same eyes are capable of imparting supreme jnana and eradicating the crass desires of Chitrinbam. What are these missiles of Manmatha? They are made of lotus, jasmine, karunukuvalai, mango and ashoka flowers. His arrows of flowers, by form, taste, fragrance and softness, have a pleasant attraction for the senses. Their beauty of shape and colors pleases the eyes. The fragrance captivates the sense of smell. The nectar makes the taste buds salivate with expectation, and their softness invites us to touch them. As for the ear, the bees and beetles are making a wholesome Adhara Sruti of concordant notes with the dominating twang of the string of the bow. Above all this is the bow of sugarcane, representing the mind responsible for all the antics of the senses. Now comes the wondrous observation that with such simple equipments as flowers, bees, and sugarcane, Manmatha is able to involve all the life forms in the business of satisfying the senses as the primary mission, day in and day out, to the exclusion of all other pursuits to the secondary or even tertiary. This means that if you have divine sanction, even a blade grass will do as a weapon. Though Acharya speaks with poetical license that her eyes are the bow of Manmatha, The purport is that the preoccupation of all life forms in gratification of the senses and the unavoidability and compulsive involvement in procreation is all as it should be. It all means that only with her grace can you be weaned away from such indulgence. It is only with her grace can we become aware of these compulsions. Once we are aware, then only we may take the first step towards controlling of the senses and thereby the mind. That is the first step also towards self-control. We become aware that there are also other purposes than satisfying the senses and dancing to the tune of the mind. We get the first taste of the fact that we can control our senses and try to be the master of our own mind. Now, the only question that remains is as to how to get her grace. That is by her one look, says Acharya in Saundarya Lahari. To punish and to protect, both are God's portfolio. All the punishment is also only for our own actions of aberrant behavior. When it comes to the matter of protection, God as Mother protects Kaman too, to enable him to the life forms from going astray, to ensure that Kaman does not play his antics. She is all the time concerned of the progressive retrieval of all life forms from becoming overly dominated by the influence of Kama. When Kamakshi's eyes are overflowing with her love, compassion and grace, Acharya is fully drenched in it, and this shlokam was the outcome. It starts with the words Drushat Ragi Yasya Daralita Nilot Palarucha. This song is directly influenced by the grace of her look. In the shlokam, Acharya is praying for her look of grace. He is not saying that he should get it. He is saying that he should also get it. He talks about the greatness of her kataksham. This word kataksham can be translated as a sidelong glance. He says that her glance can go very far. A mother keeps her children within eye distance. For this mother, this eye distance is infinity. Since we are her children, we can never be out of her sight. She is the mother for all of us, however great or small, animal, birds, insects, plants, germs, grass, and all of us too, while is them all. She is the mother for the entire universe. They are all within the range of her sight. So, there is no limit to the reach of her glance. It can and does extend to the farthest. Those eyes are like the half-open Nilotpala flower. Nilotpala is the flower born in Nil or water, a type of lotus. They are partially blue like the Nil, sky or ocean. Nil in Tamil means lengthening or extending. As the lotus flower is in water, they are pleasantly cool and not hot. Acharya says, Amma, please make me also submerged in your sidelong glance of kataksham. He uses the word mamapi to mean me also with so much humility. I do not deserve it. I am still seeking your blessings because you do not lose anything by blessing me. Nachate harityata, but I will benefit immensely. Anonyam dhanyo bhavati. He gives one example for blessing irrespective of whether the recipient deserves or not. It is night. There is a full moon. It does not differentiate between a thorny bush and an emperor's palace. The moonlight is impartial. The luxuries of the palace does not accrue to the moon, and the thorns of the bush do not prick it. So he says, Amma, for you there is no loss, and for me it is all gain. When he said me, also Acharya spoke on behalf of all of us. Acharya is not different from God, Parmeshwara or Ambal, but out of his bountiful love, all the shlokas he has written are for us to read, understand and live by. However much we may be undeserving, Mother blesses us all like the moon. Her sidelong glance, Kataksham, is cool and pleasant like the Nilotpala blue lotus flower. Sincere, heartfelt prayer is the only qualitative requirement. Om Shri Mahapariva Sharanam.